Is Veggiewagon spreading misinformation? In his video, he talks about Avatar's Wrath and some cool interactions with airbending. But there's one interaction that he talks about involving unearthing Cityscape Leveler and then airbending it. Now, whenever we airbend something, we put that object in exile and then we may cast that object as long as it's remained in exile. Anytime an object changes zones, it becomes a new object with no memory or ties to its previous self. So how is it that when we put an object in exile, it becomes a new object and still remembers that it could be cast for 2 mana? Well, there's a few times where there's an exception where that new object can remember things about its previous self. And one of them is if an effect makes an object move to a public zone, then that effect can still find that object. So airbending will exile that thing, making it a new object, but it can still find that to apply the effect of being able to cast it from exile for 2 mana. Now, the whole effect of airbending, allowing you to cast it from exile, only allows you to cast it with the alternative cost of paying 2 generic mana. This means that the only way that we can cast that thing from exile is with the effect that airbending gave it, not by any other cost. So I could not choose to cast something like Ivy Elemental for its X cost. I have to pay the 2 generic, which would have Ivy Elemental enter with 0 counters because X was not defined. And I cannot cast it with the alternative cost of Blitz. This does mean that if anything cares about the amount of mana spent to cast the thing, then it will go by what you spent on the airbending. So Gyrus Waker of Corpses would enter with 2+1/+1 counters because you spent 2 mana on it. Now, we can't cast those things with any other alternative cost, but we do have to pay for any additional costs. So if I airbent Arbiter of Woe and then spent the 2 to cast it, I would also have to pay the additional cost to sacrifice a creature along with the 2 mana. Now, once it's cast, it goes on the stack and it can be responded to just like any other spell. Any cast triggers that could go off from casting it would go on the stack as well because we are casting it. Now, the real question, how does airbending work with something like Unearth? Well, Unearth is an activated ability that allows you to put that permanent card from your graveyard onto the battlefield, and it has haste and it gets exiled at the beginning of the next end step or if it ever leaves the battlefield. Now, the important thing to note here is that if it leaves the battlefield, it gets exiled instead. And the word instead means that this is a replacement effect. And the way that those work is that they don't change the entire effect, they just modify the event. So if we use Smashing Success on that Cityscape Leveler, the effect of destroying it will still happen, but the event of it going to the graveyard will be replaced. So we would still get a treasure token for destroying it this way, but we would not get any triggers from it dying because dying means it has to be put into the graveyard from the battlefield, and since it never reached the graveyard, it never died. So applying that to airbending, the effect of exiling that thing will get replaced to exiling that thing, and the rest of the effect will still take place. So in the end, Veggiewagon's right. This guy knows his stuff. Now, that's all I'll talk about for airbending, but if there's any questions or if I missed anything, leave them in the comments.